Hello and welcome to How to Coach Your Neurodivergent Clients Better Without Becoming an Expert. I am Leanne, I'm going to be your host for today, and what we're going to do is recognize the patterns and reduce the friction in coaching systems so you don't have to be an expert, but when you get neurodivergent clients through your door, you can service them better. So, a little about me. I am the founder of Project U Academy, and we are a specialist neurodivergent fitness and wellbeing coaching. We focus on delivering sustainable routines, burnout prevention, and primarily we work with neurodivergent women. We have been nominated and shortlisted for multiple awards, the most recent being the Neurodivergent Business Awards, which was a brilliant experience. So Project U Academy is a neurodivergent specialist fitness and wellbeing business. We're supporting neurodivergent women primarily, but it will work for non-binary men as well to reduce burnout, improve your physical and mental health, build sustainable routines that work with their brains. So, as an organization, we combine fitness, lifestyle, and neurodivergent coaching to address the gaps in traditional approaches, which are often designed around neurotypical clients and their brains. So, by redesigning the coaching systems around executive function, energy regulation, and accessibility, we're able to deliver higher retention and long term well-being outcomes for neurodivergent women whilst raising standards across the fitness industry. So, what we're going to go through on the webinar today, if you would like to share this on your social media and tag Project U Academy, that would be great. But today is not about teaching you all the different types of neurodivergence and potentially pathologizing clients and reducing them to their diagnoses and traits. Instead, we're trying to teach you the patterns and behaviors, explaining the processes behind those behaviors and different ways that you can support them. We're gearing it around neurodivergence, but these approaches will also assist neurotypical clients or perceived to be neurotypical clients, as not everyone will be aware of their neurodivergence and have diagnoses or really want to share. So, yeah, we're not diagnosing anybody. We're not trying to get you to a point where a client comes in your door and you're like, you're autistic or you're ADHD or you have OCD. What we're trying to do is focus on issues that come up when coaching these clients and essentially leaves them dropping off early to your program and not getting the most from it. So, neurodivergence refers to different neurological and mental functioning compared to what's expected of a link. I'll send this in the replay or it will be linked in the description of the replay. But examples can be ADHD and autism, which are kind of the heroes at the moment. Everybody understands those as neurodivergence. But not everyone thinks of OCD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, complex PTSD. There's lots of other neurodivergent conditions. So yeah, I'll put a link to a full list of neurodivergent conditions if that's of interest to you. But many of your clients might be unaware, undiagnosed, but suspecting, and just choose not to disclose it to you as well due to beliefs around stigma, which we are trying to change. So yeah, we're going to focus on recognizing the patterns in behavior and not assigning labels. We're going to focus on the systems mismatch model. So how we work with clients at Project U Academy is if something is not working, there is a level of non-compliance, things are just not quite happening between what you're saying together and what actually happens, is not the client's fault. It's not a motivation issue. It's not a discipline issue. There are other things going on. And so what it actually is the system we're using to try and get there is mismatched to their needs. So what we need to adjust is making it fit how their brain processes the tasks, pressure, and information. So, executive dysfunction. Executive function is a set of mental processes and cognitive skills managed by the brain's prefrontal cortex that allows individuals to plan, focus their attention, remember instructions, juggle multiple tasks. When there's dysfunction, like many neurodivergent conditions have included, this leads to struggles in these areas. And in coaching, this will come up as them being motivated in talks with you and planning, but nothing happens outside of that talk. When there's a multi-step plan, they can struggle with that, or missing small tasks and saying things like, I know what to do, but I just can't do it. So a couple of ways that we can help with this is having one focus at a time. You might discuss the multi-step plan, but explicitly telling them, you just focus on this one thing first, then we'll guide you through the rest. We'll want to do the smallest possible start in action. So that could be, instead of we're going to change this with the food, we're going to add more protein, we're going to change the calories, let's just focus on one thing. Let's just focus on adding protein. Then once they've got that down, then so you're just breaking it down into smaller pieces. Prepping the tasks in talks. So when you're discussing it, rather than just, right, we're going to work out 3 times a week, do that preparation that they'd have to do logistically of planning it in their diary. If they have to leave the yoga mat out or leave their weights out at home, or their workout bag in their car, whatever they need to do to reduce the barriers. We can also use time-based goals. Now, this can be helpful when we're focusing on like action-based goals rather than outcome. So instead of X amount of steps a day, it's where can I fit in more steps? And then setting a timer and saying, right, I'm going to do 15 minutes of steps on the spot while I'm watching TV. And then they can set the timer and off they go. That often reduces some of the barriers to starting. Written summaries and clear next steps so that they can easily see what the very next step is. And like I said before, using clear and concise language, but also specific. So not just saying, yeah, sort that out. What is the sorting out? That's the part that needs to be really clear. Rejection sensitivity is a trait that involves intense, anxious anticipation of rejection, which often ends up with the individual having a bigger reaction to perceived or even imagined social slights. Now, it's a disproportionate emotional pain to what's happened. It could be something rather small, but if they feel like they've let you down, or that you're going to be disappointed in them in some way, that's when this is really going to affect them. It's not based in logic, and logic will not stop it. So no matter how many you say, oh, don't worry about that, don't worry about this, they're still going to do it. Okay. So how this might look in actually coaching clients, they could be apologizing all the time. Sorry, I haven't got back to you. Sorry, I haven't done this yet. Sorry, I haven't been able to look at this yet. Sorry, for literally things that they don't need to be sorry for, because you're not their mother. You're not going to worry about these things. They might mention wasting your time or not making the most of your coaching. They might not check in if things are not going well. Despite you saying that's the time when your check-ins are the most useful, and that's really when you want them to check in, because they'll feel like in admitting it, they're opening themselves up to rejection from their perceived failures. So what we can do here to help is normalize fluctuation and variability. So that would look like setting multiple goals as options through the week. So a plan A, B, and C. Start from plan C and work your way up, not A and work your way down, because then they'll perceive failure every time they come down. Whereas plan C is, okay, I'm doing all right, and then they're graduating up to plan B and plan A. Frame the feedback as data, not judgment, i.e., I can see this has been a struggle for a few weeks in a row, which tells me we need to try another approach as it's not working for you. Not, I can see you've struggled with this the past few weeks. What's happening for you there? Technically, it also has non-reactive language, but it requires them to know what the issue is. And if they're unaware that they're neurodivergent, that's a very difficult question to answer. So we want to guide them through the process. With using non-reactive language, that means not necessarily saying, oh dear, that's a shame, just, okay, will do. And sometimes this is better done in voice notes or videos or direct calls because they can hear your tone. Yeah, sometimes it's very difficult for the tone not to be read a certain way despite how we write it. Don't tell them how to think and feel. Don't worry about it. Don't feel bad. Don't beat yourself up. You can just say, that's okay. I know you might be worried about disappointing me, or you've mentioned you're worried about disappointing me. You cannot disappoint me because I'm not here to dictate to you. I'm here to help for you. I'm here to help guide you and make decisions that are going to work better for you. So let's figure out a solution together. Very much working together, non-reactive, non-judgmental. And a lot of these you'll notice as we're going through will overlap a little bit. And that's fine because you'll have all of these options to work through them together. So demand avoidance and demand sensitivity. It's an anxiety driven, most of the time, resistance to everyday requests, expectations, and demands. This doesn't mean you saying, hey, we're going to do 3 workouts a week, and they don't do it because they're like, oh, I've said it now. They could say, I want to do just 1 workout a week, and it still feels too much. It even can go down to eating, just hunger can be a demand internally, bathing, working. It's not conscious, but it's a nervous system response. And most of the time, it's driven by a need for control and a fear of losing autonomy. So, in coaching, this will look like avoiding doing the task once you've asked or you've decided, once it's a rule, if you will. It becomes, or their achievements become less successful the more you increase accountability. Because our default is if something's not working, give the client more accountability, give them more reminders, give them more. Sometimes that's going to go the opposite way. Or they're going to withdraw from the coaching altogether, despite still wanting the help. This isn't that they've given up. This is that the demand is too big for them to be able to tackle right now. What you can do instead is offer the choices for them to choose from when it comes to the next steps. So instead of let's do 1 workout a week, it could be let's see, we could go for 1 workout this week, but we could also do like a walk. We could do kind of 3 songs of like dancing on the spot, stepping on the spot to the beat, whatever it's going to work in your coaching. This is obviously very much fitness focused, but insert examples from whichever area or industry you coach in if you're not in the fitness industry. So offering the choices is going to help them focus on autonomy rather than compliance. Where can the client make the decision in the next steps here? Because there's always multiple ways we can go around things. We want to use invitational language, no shoulds. We want to say, instead of like, oh, you should do this if you want to do that, that's not going to work very well. Instead, we want to say, these are some options that you could do in order to get towards that goal. And Keeping their autonomy in the process means that you're going to be the guide and showing them how they can get there. Again, options, 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 not just one way. You're not going to be their dictator on what they should do next. We want to reduce the pressure by making less intense options available. Yes, there's an optimal way to do it, but that doesn't mean, like, there's no point giving them an optimally organized program if they can't do it, because it's optimal for no one at that point. And make clear that it's not a failure if it's not the original plan. Okay, that's why we've got the options available. All or nothing thinking or black and white thinking, they're similar but not quite the same. But they're a cognitive, almost distortion, if you will, but things are viewed in clear binary terms, such as perfect or failure, good or bad, and there's not really a space for middle ground or nuance or grey. It's quite rigid. It is sometimes an unrealistic mental filter that will ignore the complexity in a situation and then leads to anxiety, perfectionism, and self criticism, which can be really difficult for a client because that rejection sensitivity, they're also sensitive to rejection from themselves. So they're similar and there's overlap, but they're not the same. All or nothing is along the lines of, if it's not this, then what's the point? Black and white thinking is more, it's this or that. So there is overlap, but it's not exactly the same. How this will show up in your coaching is that it's a failure even when there's partial success. So even if they didn't quite do the whole plan, but they did do some things, they might even recognize that they've done some things. However, they've still failed the week in their eyes, or the success is tinted with a perceived failure within it. They might also add secret parameters to success added to their goals. So it could be that the goal was to do one workout that week and they did half the workout. That's the partial success. But in their head, the success of the workout meant that they got changed, they were energetic, they put lots of effort in, and maybe they didn't do those, but they still did the workout. This might also look like hyper adherence. So really, really adhering almost incredibly, and you think, wow, I wish all my clients were as good as this, but followed by a drop off once, like one obstacle will then create total abandonment of, well, if I can't do it properly, what's the point? And this is their idea of properly. So making sure that they're aware of the options that are success. So you want to define what's good enough. Yeah. And this means that those secret parameters of success can't creep in as easy. So having different levels, it could be do the workout, full energy, full workout. That's the ideal. But if you just give the workout a go, even if it goes absolutely terribly, it's good enough that you gave it a go. Explicitly define what success is and what is not included, i.e., do one workout or activity outside of our sessions. It doesn't matter what or for how long, just that something's done. So you really want to celebrate the partial compliance, let's say. We want to remove on and off track from the language that you're using as well, because that feeds into this is on track, this is correct, everything else is off track. We want to treat missed compliance or missed all that data, like we want to treat it as data, basically, rather than an issue with them. It's an issue with how we're going about it as a team. So if we're using that, it will be focusing on something that's not working and how do we make it easier to complete. Emotional dysregulation is the reduced ability to manage or regulate emotional responses. So feelings can be very intense, long lasting, and oftentimes disproportionate to the situation from the outside looking in. So it will show up as big reactions to setbacks. Oh, my diet went off, and they need you to give them a whole pep talk because they go into a shame spiral. Bad weeks feel catastrophic. They want to give up a lot, but then bounce back with just as big emotions on making it work, heading into that all or nothing situation. So, how we can help is pre planning recovery strategies. You're not their therapist, unless you are, but you need boundaries. You need them to become self sufficient and not rely on you to regulate them and provide them with that pep talk every time that an obstacle comes up. So, we can include reflective prompts in your messaging that can be, now I've put myself on the spot. This could be putting in, even if I don't do everything this week, what are some things that have gone well? Or even if some things have gone really badly this week, what are some things that have gone well within that not going well? And focus on regulating before trying to progress again. Because when we go straight into, don't worry about it, one, we're telling them how to feel, and then we're going straight into trying again, that then feeds that all or nothing messaging of like, oh, fuck. And then, right, let's try again. We're going to go all in. Even if you don't say that, that's how it's going to be perceived for them. And making the steps smaller again so that one thing going wrong can be reduced in comparison to the big picture of what you're doing. We don't want to reduce how they're feeling or invalidate it. It may be a mismatched reaction for the issue, but it feels very real for them all the same. Working memory struggles include or involve difficulty holding and manipulating information in your mind over short periods, disrupting tasks requiring focus, planning, and recall. So for me, this will show up in counting reps. I will literally forget, or forgetting parts of the plan. Let's see how it shows up for them. Forgetting parts of the plan. So partial compliance all the time, and they're not doing it. They're just like, I'm sorry, I forgot about this. I forgot to do that. I forgot to get my workouts in this week. They'll be seeking lots of clarification as well, maybe answering questions. Maybe they take notes in your calls as well. So you can reduce that by sending them, lots of us use AI note takers, so sending them the summaries or literally sending them the bullet points from the meeting that you've had and what's happening next. And they might look a bit overwhelmed or a bit bewildered when it comes to the end of the call. So providing written summaries, and you can talk through that summary as well at the end of the call to make sure that they feel clear on what's going, and saying, don't worry if you forget, I'm going to send you the summary anyway. Where possible, have the one focus at the time and ask if they feel like they can remember this with a written version better, or if there's a better way to help remind them. So it might be they don't want the summary because it's more things to try and keep in their head. They just want you to remind them on Monday that we're doing this, remind them on Tuesday to do X, Y, Z. That could be helpful for them as well. So time agnosia, also known as time blindness, you might be more familiar with, is a struggle with accurately perceiving, estimating, and tracking the passage of time. It causes the challenges with memory, planning, scheduling, because they might feel like the time speeding up and slowing down makes it difficult to be consistent with stuff because time's just flown by and like the week's gone, I didn't do my workouts, or being punctual to your calls and stuff like that. So it will show up for in coaching by them always feeling behind. They never seem to have the time for things agreed. They turn up late for calls, they miss the deadlines and check-ins, constantly feel behind, and it might also just feel like a chaotic vibe, something maybe less tangible but just really chaotic. Or them saying, yeah, I'll fit that in this week, and then it gets to Thursday and you're like, have you done that yet? And they're like, oh, I've just had no time. We probably need help with that. So how you can help, you can use time blocking. However, you may need to be a bit more specific with it. So yes, this time is workout time, but for that time block, we're going to do this specific workout rather than getting them to choose their own. You can do timers / races against themselves. So if they say, right, I want to do 5 minutes of stretching, yes, they could put 5 minutes down, or they could also do a list of stretches for 20, 30 seconds each, whatever it is that works for your programming in order to help them. Breaking the task down into smaller chunks. So, maybe 5, 10, 20-minute chunks rather than an hour task. So you're not changing what you're doing, but it's easier to pick up and put down if they've forgotten something else that they were meant to be doing at that time. And ask them what's in their schedule. Get them to share it with you if they're comfortable, so that you can sanity check it with them and just say, look, some of my clients are just really ambitious, and it's not, a lack of motivation. It's just accidentally unrealistic. So I don't want you to set yourself up for failure. So let's have a look at it together and make sure there's if there's any sticking points, we can just readjust it together. Send reminders for calls. For my own clients, yes, they get their email reminders and whatnot, but I will send them a WhatsApp at the time of the call, literally with the word call reminder. It doesn't have to be over friendly. They know what it is. It says it on the tin, call reminder. And sometimes that's really helpful. Maybe include the link in there as well, because they've probably lost it in their emails. Don't pressurize them to be on time. Yes, it's helpful for us to have everything scheduled, and it's how we run our business, but allow 5 to 10 minutes grace. You might even say, look, I know sometimes things come up, we're a bit late. I will send a reminder at the time. If you're going to be more than 10 minutes late, let me know and we'll just reschedule it for another time. There's no, please be considerate of my time, because I promise you that rejection sensitivity, they're already feeling really bad about letting you down in any way, shape or form. So that way it reduces the judgment, and you can just send the reschedule link, no problem. So if something is not working, it is not the client's fault. It's a systems mismatch. If they didn't want to try, or they needed to try harder, they didn't have the discipline, whatever, they are trying. Otherwise, they wouldn't have signed up in the first place for the price that you're charging. They'd go for a much cheaper option, like a self-paced or a 30-day plan, a challenge. That's what they would do. If your client seems inconsistent, resistant, overwhelmed, and not progressing like you're able to help other clients, they don't need to be diagnosed and pathologized. They need you to help them reduce the friction. Every client I've worked with that has spoken highly of a previous coach or of ourselves have said that they felt listened to, and the coach helped them find solutions. The ones that insisted that things that needed to be done a certain way, didn't help find solutions or workarounds, was always seen as not helpful and essentially made them feel not listened to. For your own clients and your own questions, pop them in the comments, chat, whatever you're watching this on, or you can message me directly at Project U Academy on Instagram, TikTok, or on LinkedIn. Leanne Stevens. I'll show you these anyway, so that you can ask questions about particular clients that you've got. I consult coaches across different industries quite often where they just ask me questions about a particular client they've got. So I'm more than happy to do that. Um, I also, one thing I nearly forgot, if you are neurodivergent yourself watching this and you would like to join, I do have a free neurodivergent founders and business owner WhatsApp group for us to connect and support each other through the difficulties and the struggles of business. Not all the good stuff, pretending everything's fine when the house is really on fire. So if you do want to join that, just message me on any of the platforms you can see there on the screen. And if you have enjoyed today, please do post about it on social media so that we can reach more people that are in coaching or in the fitness industry. And I will send the replay and the slides after the call. You might be watching it on the replay now. So you can still come back to it when you need a refresh or if you want to share it with a fellow professional. And these slides will also be linked as well if you want to download those. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this has been insightful. There is a lot that we went through, so you're bound to probably have questions. So please do send them through. More than happy to help.